Haha! So, welcome to another segment of this. That's all I've got. That's the entire video. So now, we're going to be starting out this one, as we often do, with me just kind of catching a bunch of crap and immediately going into Pokemon bios. Let me actually not spend all my money. I don't know what else I'd spend it on, but just in case I'd want it. There's not really a whole lot going on in Azalea Town. You've got the Slowpoke Well, which I'll be looking at shortly. We've got the gym, of course, which I'll be looking at some point after the well. We've got Kurt's house, which we will be doing before the well, because I kind of have to. But we've also got this forest off to the side. Here's Don't Serve the Devil Lady. I like how Stay Out of Mischief turns into Don't Serve the Devil. It's a good translation. But yeah, here in Ilex Forest, we're just gonna kind of look for some shenanigans to get up to, by which I mean there's some new Pokemon to catch, and in the process of doing that, I will be leveling up David a bit. I still think that David is a really stupid name for an Onix, and I kind of regret giving it this name, but, eh. Like, I would have called it Hater after the last, like, David Hater, like, the last name, but then it just sounds like I'm saying, like, H-A-T-E-R. Like, don't be a hater, yo. It's just, I don't know, kind of dumb. So I can already see that this battle is going to be lasting a few months, so let's, water gun, maybe? I don't know. But yeah, this is just going to kind of be a grinding session, honestly, and, so I'll just kind of do the Pokemon Bio stuff over it to speed things up. Might as well just start on that pretty much right away here. I will point out, though, that it is currently about 5 o'clock, and god damn it, there are several Pokemon in here that are exclusive tonight, so they'll start showing up at 6. So I'm going to just focus on getting the daytime ones, and then we'll get the rest later. Metapod is the first evolved Pokemon that you're likely to encounter in a lot of the early games, and so it makes sense that it's the first one I'm reviewing here. This one's pretty straightforward, not a whole lot to say about it. It's obviously just kind of the cocoon stage between the caterpillar and the butterfly. Makes sense. They probably did that just to introduce the concept of Pokemon evolution using a real-world example of it, and that's fine by me. And, it's something you're only going to have for a couple levels, so it won't stick around for long, and you won't want it to because it kind of sucks. Metapod's name is also pretty straightforward. It's Metamorphosis and Pod. Japanese name, not much different. It's Transcell, which is transform, and Shell, so they both have the same idea behind them. And the actual design on this one is the main point of interest here, because it's really weird looking. The thing that it seems to resemble the most is the chrysalis of the pipevine swallowtail. It might not specifically be based off of that one. There's a few others that apparently it also resembles, but I found that this one was probably the closest. But the thing I really want to talk about with this thing is just how inconsistent its design is throughout the years, because, good God, the artists can never decide what this thing is supposed to look like. And so, as a kid, seeing this thing in just the original artwork and some of the sprites, I thought that it was supposed to be sort of like a crescent moon with like a pointy nose and sort of like an angry eye going on. That's apparently not the case, although the artwork does not really communicate that very well. Instead, the pointy nose is supposed to be either a spike jutting out of its back or like an arm. That is actually somewhat unclear, as we'll get to. And the actual face is just sort of like a collection of weird geometric patterns on the front of it, and the eye is supposed to be like depressed looking instead of angry. So, it's kind of weird. And here's where I'm not actually going to have any visuals, because I don't want to insert every single one of these sprites into the picture, because it'll take forever. So if you want to like pull up Bulbapedia's sprite list or something, for visuals, go right ahead. Basically, looking at this thing from the beginning, the yellow sprite is technically the best of the ones from Gen 1, but it's also just flat out incorrect. unless it's facing away from the player, because if you compare that one to the back sprite from Gen 5, the poses are almost identical. So I'm not sure if it's meant to be facing away or if they just got it wrong. Then as we get into Gen 2, if you look at the silver sprite, you can kind of see what they were trying to get across here. It has like the two pointy bits sticking out, which are supposed to sort of be arms, and you can also see those in the back sprite. But then if you compare that to the Gen 4 sprites, now it has like the two arms, but it also has like a spike coming out of its back. And so it makes it kind of unclear if the thing that I thought was a nose is supposed to be one of the arms or if it's supposed to be the back spike. I think the arms are actually supposed to be sort of the diamond-shaped things near its eye, but that doesn't mesh with like the Gen 3 sprites, because there it very clearly does have arms. So either all Metapod are a little different looking, or the designers just didn't know what it was supposed to look like, and I'm thinking it's probably the latter. You can also see this with the 3D models, though you're not going to get much like clarity on those from the Bulbapedia page. If you have like a Gen 6 or 7 game and you can look at it in the Pokédex, you can see there, like, they pretty much got rid of the arms. It has the back spike, but it's barely noticeable unless you rotate it the right way. And this one kind of resembles the model that they used in Pokemon Snap, which was different from the one that they used in Stadium, because Stadium did have the arms from what I remember. It's just kind of a mess. I don't know, it's a weird moon-shaped green thing, and that's pretty much all it needs to be, I guess. As for Kakuna, it's functionally the same thing as Metapod, other than the fact that Weedle carries over Poison Sting, and Caterpie only has Tackle, so it's slightly better in that regard. But otherwise, they're basically the same Pokemon, other than design. And whereas Metapod was extremely confusing, Kakuna's a lot more straightforward. It's just kind of a yellow lump with a bunch of weird ornamentation on its front. And for a long time I thought that this wasn't really based off of anything in reality, but it actually turns out this thing is pretty much exactly what a bee pupa looks like. And with the image that I'm going to throw in here, which is rather terrifying, you can make that out for yourself. It's just pretty much halfway between the larva and the adult bee, and that's what it is. That's what it looks like. Kakuna's name is also extremely straightforward. Obviously, it's just Cocoon, but spelled differently and with an A at the end for some reason. The Japanese name is literally just the word Cocoon, and the beta name for it was also just Cocoon, but spelled with K's instead of C's. So, not really a whole lot to say about this one, honestly. The early design of it did show that it kind of had arms that it could use, which resembled like the spears that Beedrill has, and I thought that was kind of neat because you can see that it's kind of like growing into that. But ever since the red-blue sprite, it's never been shown using those, so I think they abandoned that concept, and now it's basically just kind of a lump that can't move. Only other thing really worth talking about with this one is that, much like Weedle, it did have sort of a beta design. This one was named Kasanagi, and it doesn't really look anything like the final Kakuna because the beta form of Beedrill was not actually a bee at all, but some sort of beetle. So this one is halfway between the Weedle and the beetle thing. So, I don't know, it's kind of interesting, but not really a whole lot to say about it because it's just one very low-quality drawing that we have to go off of. Oh boy, Paris. I'm going to have a lot to say about this one, actually. Paris is a bug and grass type because it is functionally two completely separate organisms that are interacting with each other. And before I start getting into any of that, I'll just cover the obvious. The name is just Parasite but shortened. Japanese name is exactly the same thing. The beta name was also just Parasite but spelled with a Y instead of an I because poor literacy is cool, etc., etc. But as for the actual basis that this thing comes from, that's where it starts getting interesting. The insect part of it appears to be a cicada of some kind, Cicadas spend most of their life cycle underground in the sort of the larval stage, where they mostly suck on tree roots, and then when they do reach adulthood to breed, they usually come out in mass quantities and take over the entire area that they're in and are impossible to ignore. But that's not something that we would see until Gen 3. So this one's basically just sort of the basic, like, infant cicada. And the fact that they chose that for this Pokemon is somewhat arbitrary. They might have done that just because they wanted something that didn't really resemble any other bug Pokemon they had. Maybe they wanted something that had, like, a close relationship with the ground. Doesn't really matter. But where Paris gets interesting is the mushrooms that it has growing on it. The Pokedex refers to these as Tochukaso, which is actually a real type of mushroom, and it is a type of cordyceps, which is basically a parasitic mushroom that can grow on various types of insects and essentially kills them, but in a particularly weird way. I think these have become slightly more well-known recently due to things like The Last of Us sort of popularizing the idea of, like, mind control fungus. In that game, it creates, basically turns humans into zombies. And that's essentially what's going on here, and even with the real-life ones. It's not just cicadas that can get these, it's a large different range of insects, and the Tochukaso specifically infects the ghost moth, and that mushroom in particular is apparently used in like traditional Chinese and Tibetan medicine. It's also used as an aphrodisiac and is claimed to help with depression and diabetes, and has also been used as, like, a form of steroid. Whether or not it's actually effective, I have no idea. This is just what I've read about. But so that one's used for ghost moths. There's a whole bunch of different other types of them, though, and what they have in common is it's basically just a fungus that can infect an insect of some kind, basically starts growing out of them, sucking the nutrients out of its host in order to sustain itself, and then eventually will end up actually taking over the mind of the insect and kill it. But, like, it's not just like it's an infection that kills it, but in some cases it also, like, drives the insect to suicide in order to, like, get it, like, basically control it and, like, take it to the rest of the other mushrooms in order for the body to feed them. It's really freaking weird. Mushrooms in general are just kind of unusual, but these are definitely the weirdest ones that I've ever heard of. And although this might be common knowledge, it's also worth noting that although Paris is grass type, a mushroom is not actually a plant, because a fungus is actually its own classification of life. You have animals, plants, and fungi. They're close enough to plants, though, where it makes sense. Obviously, it doesn't really deserve its own type. And for some reason, I don't know if this is an intentional thing that they're keeping up or if it's just coincidence, but every odd-numbered Pokemon generation has had some kind of mushroom Pokemon in it. Like, here we have Paris, and then we had Shroomish, and Fungus, and then Morlul. And they are the only Pokemon other than Smeargle that actually have access to Spore, which is kind of cool. It's just sort of something unique to them. As for the mushrooms on this thing, whether or not there's, like the Pokedex calls them Tochukaso, they don't really look like it because the actual real-life ones kind of have, like, a super long stem, and they don't really look like this one. The ones growing on Paris honestly look more like Amanita, which are the ones that are most well known for being like the Mario mushrooms, kind of like the red ones with spots. And as a side note, the reason that the Mario mushrooms make you big is because the actual Amanitas have this property to them where basically if you ingest one, it makes you feel like basically your perception of size is distorted. It's kind of known as, like, Alice in Wonderland effect, where you think that you're shrinking or growing. So, I don't know, lots of interesting stuff for this one, but if you found any of that interesting and didn't know about it before, I recommend looking it up, because it is very weird. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and say that I'm done speeding up that bit now. So, just to recap what happened during the sped up version, or the sped up footage there, I got up to level 10 here, learned to bind, which, I mean, it's something at least. Caught the Metapod, Kakuna, and Paris, obviously, and I could go on and do other stuff, but because I'd actually still want to grind this thing up a bit, and I feel like I might as well do another Pokemon bio over the footage, I've got nothing better to do. Let's actually go and find some other stuff, because I do have access to a few other Pokemon at this point. Several of them are still mooring exclusive. We've got one that is a 1% encounter rate unless it swarms. And then there's Quillfish, which I did look up, and it can be caught without swarming with the Super Rod, but for Old Rod it requires a swarm, so we can't get that one until he calls about it. But we do have access to other fish, and not just Magikarp, actually. We'll see if I happen to get lucky and get the other one here, but it's probably going to be a Magikarp. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, Goldeen can be found in most freshwater locations, and Tentacool can be found in most saltwater ones, and Magikarp's in all of them. So, I mean, what the hell, might as well. Like, let's just go on and do more ramblings. Goldeen is a pretty straightforward fish. Pretty much every generation has at least one of these. They're some of the most boring Pokemon there are, so I'm not going to force myself to talk about this one more than necessary. But it's a goldfish with a horn. It has a horn because a lot of Gen 1 Pokemon just randomly have a horn, because they probably thought that that would make them more, like, interesting or monstrous or whatever. It's kind of dumb, but I mean, it was something for it at least. But yeah, this one's just, it's a goldfish. The name is obviously just goldfish, and then it's also queen, even though it can be male or female, but Gen 1 Pokemon didn't give a shit about that. Japanese name is Tosakinto, and Tosakin is just a type of goldfish, and most likely the one that this was based off of. I did a little bit of research on goldfish just to have something to talk about here, and apparently they were about 1,000 years ago bred in China from the Prussian carp, just sort of the way that dog breeding has produced various types of dogs that don't look anything like each other. Same kind of thing happened with goldfish, except obviously they're a little bit more similar because they're fish. But there's different types of them. Some of them have big puffy eyes. They have different types of fins and coloration and stuff. And this one does look like a Veiltail, or rather the Tosakin. There's another one called the Veiltail, which I think it looks like as well. Basically, both of them just kind of have like big billowy tail fins and similar-ish coloration. That's really about it in terms of like how it fares in battle. I mean, I forced myself to use one in yellow just because nobody ever uses it, and I mean, there's a reason nobody uses it. It's really generic. It starts out with Peck, which is a flying type move, but it's a weak move, so it's not really doing it that many favors. And other than that, it just kind of gets a bunch of generic water moves. It did learn Waterfall naturally in Gen 1, which was the only thing that actually got it before it became an HM, so that's kind of interesting. But, usually what people remember Goldeen for is just Misty having one that never did anything because it's a fish and couldn't really be used in most situations. And in the Smash Bros. Games, it's just kind of the joke Pokemon that pops out and flops around and doesn't do anything. Which is kind of weird because there is another fish Pokemon that is known for doing that isn't Goldeen. And speaking of which, Magikarp is the original joke Pokemon and probably the most famous. Kind of goes without saying, but its claim to fame is that it starts out with only Splash, which cannot do anything at all, and it takes a while to get any kind of move, which is just Tackle, which also sucks, and then eventually it evolves into something really good. But we're not going to be talking about its evolution here because that's its own whole conversation, and anything to do with the mythology behind Magikarp evolving into Gyarados, I'll be saving for that one. Here we basically just have another plain fish, except it's even lamer than Goldeen. This one, the name indicates correctly that it is a carp, apparently an Asian carp specifically. The magic part is probably somewhat sarcastic because of how bad Magikarp is. It's kind of like, you have this magical carp, what can it do? Not much. And the Japanese name is actually kind of similar in that regard, because it's called Koi King. It's the king of koi, except it's not particularly great. I guess it would be stronger than a regular, like, real animal koi, but it's never really been shown if Pokemon inhabit the same world as animals, so that's always been kind of unclear. Speaking of koi, what we, like, in English-speaking countries know as a koi is basically a specific type of carp that was bred in Japan, as opposed to goldfish, which were carp bred in China. And what Japan calls a koi, it's basically just their word for carp, as far as I can tell. So Magikarp doesn't look like an English koi, it just kind of looks like a carp, so there's a little bit of confusion there. I also thought that a koi was basically a type of goldfish, but it's not. They're slightly different. But apparently this one's basis, other than just generically being a fish or carp or whatever, is the fact that Asian carp in particular are apparently really, like, jumpy and easily startled. And so they can actually jump up to 10 feet out of the water, which is fairly impressive. And evidently, there is a problem of fishermen catching, like, actually getting attacked by these things, because they'll, like, be out on their boat or whatever, and then these fucking fish just kind of fly up and hit them in the face, which sounds kind of amazing, but, yeah, that's basically Magikarp. Like I said, everything interesting about this one has to do with its evolution, so we won't talk about that until it comes up. Tentacool is basically the Zubat of the ocean, in the sense that it shows up extremely frequently in almost every generation whenever you're surfing somewhere, and you just get tired of seeing it, and it's very commonly overlooked for that reason, but is actually not all that bad, much like Zubat. It is mostly known for its high special defense, but it does have a few things going for it. I've used one a couple times. It's a decent enough Pokemon. It's just that there's usually other water types that are a bit more interesting than it. Because, as I said, you'll be running into this thing constantly, and you'll not want to see it on your own team, usually. But, at least it's more interesting than the generic fish Pokemon. This one is pretty clearly supposed to be a jellyfish, though it also kind of looks like an octopus or a squid in some way. I think it's supposed to sort of be a combination of the three. The game always refers to it as a jellyfish, but in this phase at least, it only has the 2 tentacles, whereas jellyfish usually have a lot more, so... I mean, an octopus or a squid is going to have more than 2 also, but... I don't know. I think it looks a little bit like both. I've also seen a couple people say that it has sort of a, like, Akira Toriyama style link to it, where it has, like, the weird gems that look like a lot of the weird things, like, on Frieza's shoulders and stuff like that. I can kind of see that. I don't know if they were going for that specifically, though. As with a lot of Pokemon I've been talking about recently, the name is fairly obvious and doesn't really deserve any attention. It's just Tentacool, or Tentacool plus cool. I don't know what's so cool about it, but whatever. The Japanese name is a bit more complex than that. It is Meno Karage, which Bulbapedia claims could be one of a few different things. Meno Kataki means enemy, and Kurage means jellyfish, so it's basically just enemy jellyfish. But there is also a term called Meno Doku, which means poison to the eye, which effectively translates to, like, something that is, like, enticing to look at, but you don't want to. Which doesn't specifically refer to Tentacool in any meaningful way, other than the fact that it is poisonous, so it could be related to that in some way. Also, its beta name was just Jilly, which is kind of hilarious. am kind of glad they changed that. But, yeah, it's, like I said, it's a jellyfish. There's a lot of different types of jellyfish, but I'm not going to be getting into that here. I don't really care that much about it, and I haven't looked up much info on them. I did find out that the one that this resembles the most is the box jellyfish, which is in itself just sort of a broad category with a lot of different types within it. But the box jellyfish is apparently somewhat noteworthy in the fact that it can actually go after prey, whereas most jellyfish just drift aimlessly, which is what I thought most of them did because they don't have any kind of visible brain or, like, really anything. So I'm not really sure how they go after prey, but they do have light sensors and can presumably, like, detect motion around them and stuff, so I'm sure they have some way to do it. And the box jellyfish is also known for being one of the most deadly, especially around Australia. It's Australia has every deadly creature known to man, but they also have these in the ocean. And as I said, there's a lot of different kinds of them, so I don't know if this applies to all box jellyfish or just some, but they do have stings that can, if they don't outright kill you, they'll basically wish you were dead by just giving you severe pain that doesn't go away for hours or, like, ever. So basically what I've learned is don't go in the ocean. Okay, so once again, I think my timing probably didn't work out here, so sorry if you had to stare at nothing for a bit there. But while going for the tentacle, if you didn't see in the footage, I actually got a call from hiker Anthony talking about a swarm that came in. I'll go ahead and actually just show the clip of that again real quick so you can see. And so, we're going to be heading into Dark Cave. I've not been in here yet, and there's not really a whole lot to see. Mainly because it's dark, lol, but also because it's really small and there's nothing in here. Dark Cave is actually fairly pointless. It can be used as a shortcut to, like, basically the last route of Johto, but you can't get anywhere useful from that, and you need Surf and possibly Strength to get through it anyway. So what you saw just now was the full extent of what you can access in Dark Cave before having Surf. You can find your usual Zubat and Geodude here, but you can also find Dunsparce. It is here without the Swarm, it's just a 1% rate, so it'll take a while to find one. But since it's swarmed, I figured might as well go for it. We'll grab this thing, so... Dunsparce is a weird one, but I'll share my thoughts on that in my little bio for it, so I guess let's go ahead and jump to that. Dunsparce is one of many Pokemon introduced in Gen 2 that is just a single-stage, unevolving Pokemon that is fairly unimpressive, at least at first glance, and it's also one of several normal types that fall into that category, other ones being Aipom and Stantler. Dunsparce, when it first came out, was usually considered one of the worst and most useless Pokemon of Gen 2. Definitely not the worst, because that would have to go to Unknown, and Delabird's not too far behind. But when it was first introduced, it was pretty unimpressive. It's just kind of a normal type with really low speed and not particularly great other stats other than, like, HP. Never got any really amazing attacks. It does have access to Glare, but that's about it. It's gotten significantly better in later games, though, because from Gen 3 onwards, it got access to Serene Grace, which is an ability that makes any move with an additional effect more likely to trigger that effect. So a common strategy that people use with it in-game and possibly in competitive is making use of Glare to paralyze stuff and then Headbutt to cause them to flinch, because if they're slower than you from the paralysis, then the flinch can kick in. And it can also get the additional effects from things like Ice Beam and stuff like that. But it's usually considered not great, but is at least okay. I personally think it's kind of an interesting design, and I've enjoyed using it on a couple occasions. Not the best Pokemon out there, but it's something different to try out. As for what the hell this thing is based on, I believe that is also slightly more well-known nowadays, as opposed to when it first was released. I thought it just kind of looked like a roadkill snake or maggot or something at first, but it is based off of the Tsuchinoko, which is a cryptid in Japan. A cryptid being an animal that doesn't actually exist, but people think it does, kind of like Bigfoot or the Chupacabra. And the Tsuchinoko is basically just kind of a fat snake thing that... that's a really great description, I know. It's probably something that people thought existed because they saw a snake swallow a larger animal and have like a bulge in its center. Because that's honestly what this thing is supposed to be. It's just kind of like a really fat snake that its body is kind of like thinner at the head and tail, but then has like a big bulging center. And it has a lot of weird mythology behind it, like a lot of Japanese animals like the tanuki, which have no real basis on reality at all. They just kind of claim that they have these abilities that they don't. And the Tsuchinoko is said to be able to like basically curl up into a hoop by biting its own tail and then rolling. It also can apparently jump without having any kind of legs. Some people say it can fly. Apparently it can talk and gets drunk off of sake, and sometimes is poisonous, but sometimes isn't, and can burrow through the ground, and just kind of has this wide range of weird abilities that really have nothing to do with each other. And Dunsparce reflects a few of those, because it has the drill on its tail, and it has the little ineffective wings. It's kind of just a hodgepodge of ideas, but I think it works out fairly well for what it is. And its Japanese name is Nokochi, which is basically just an anagram of Tsuchinoko, in some ways. Again, realizing the languages are fundamentally different. I don't completely see it myself, but I at least see some of it. And the English name is a little bit harder to pinpoint. The sparse part makes sense because it's based off of a cryptid. It's an animal that either doesn't exist or is so elusive that we haven't confirmed that it exists, so sparse meaning rare, that part makes sense. Dun could either, like, the word dun itself means grayish yellow or gloomy, which could refer to its coloration. Could also just mean dunce. I don't think Dunsparce has ever been shown to be, like, particularly dull-witted or anything, but it could be that. I always thought it was dune, because it can burrow, but I guess that doesn't really make that much sense, so I'm not really sure. Also, the beta name for this one is apparently Douglery. When I say beta name, and when I say apparently, I actually mean that, unlike the Gen 1 beta names, which have some kind of real-life, like, real confirmed basis from, like, old promotional material, as I mentioned before with Wooper originally being called Ampharos, these are just kind of names that were leaked around like 1999 or 2000 and kind of spread across the internet. And I don't know if they were just rumors or if they had some kind of actual basis, but they came from somewhere and they spread, and some of them were kind of interesting. So this one was just a Douglery. Okay, so we just hit level 12, and I'd like to point out that all the time I did this grinding, I got through this entire thing without getting poisoned until the very freaking end there. I was starting to wonder if there was like some kind of weird property of like a rock or ground type that prevented it from getting poisoned that I was unaware of, but whatever. Learned Poison Powder on Basil. If that was not shown, I don't know if it was or if it was notable, but now you know it.
You will now die from basil poisoning.
So, it is currently 5:51. Which means if I waited another 9 minutes, I could get 3 more Pokemon to show up in the forest and then catch those and spend another 12 or so talking about them. But we've just gotten through like 7 Pokemon bios, and I don't really want to do any more at the moment. I'm gonna have another one coming up soon enough as it is, and probably more after that, so I think we're good for a bit. Let's actually not grab that, I don't want it to take up my inventory. So anyway, here's Kurt. before we talk to Kurt, let's look around the room. This set of 3 silhouettes is apparently a young Professor Oak. And I guess we don't get to analyze what's going on over here. That's unfortunate. Yeah, Slowpoke, we're all kidnapped. It's a little bit dumb. Do you know about that? Screw it, I'll tell you, it doesn't matter. Let me just exposit some information onto you for no reason. I'll show them what's for. A dramatic moment that caused the music to stop, apparently. Skinny trees make it like, if you're even pointing them out as being skinny, is it really that bad? Like, come on. Yes, I'm very glad. So yeah, I kinda don't really need to talk to the people around here, but I'm just gonna see if there's anything interesting going on. It's probably just a bunch of, oh, the Slowpoke are gone, oh no. I can't even go into the forest to get charcoal. Here's our best friend, Fearful. We'll be seeing more Fearful later on. Yes, I've heard. My god, these people have, like, one thing to say. Insert ball joke here. I can't really think of any that would actually be clever, so I'll just leave it up to the imagination of the viewer. Alright, let me just grab a few... Okay, no, I don't want to buy multiple charcoal. Just get a few more Pokeballs. Fuck it, I'll just spend all my money, I don't care. I shouldn't need a bunch right now, but how many do I even have? With those, I have 9, so yeah, I was running low. Alright, so there was a dude blocking this before, now he's gone because old Kurt, charged at the missile bomb member and shirked and then fell down and burrowed his waist. Or whatever the hell the dialogue is in Vietnamese Crystal. It's honestly one of the best things in the entire, like, in the entire game. Just, you have to at least see that one part. The dialogue there is just incredible. However, you did not broad your waist, apparently. What would be the... If broad is past tense, what would be the present tense? Like, braid? Braid my waist? I don't know. So, I guess this is our first encounter with Team Rocket, and it sure is a good first impression with their multiple Rattata, and... Let me think. I'm not sure how many people are down here. I'm gonna say 4. And I'm gonna guess that, other than Rattata, the only things we'll be seeing are some Coughings, maybe 1 or 2 Ekans, and I think, like, 1 Drowsy, if I remember right. Which, if there is actually a Drowsy, then I applaud them slightly for the bit of variety there. Which is honestly more than I would have expected. But yeah, Team Rocket is really shitty in this game, and we'll unfortunately be seeing a lot of them in the future. So I'm not gonna go all out on my complaints about how boring they are right now, because I'll have plenty of time to go over that later. Instead, I will do everybody's, I'll go into everybody's favorite subject, bitching about work, because I'm gonna have quite a few of these to get through, probably. So, it's gonna be hard to not go into all the details here, but, suffice it to say that the, last week at work has been particularly shitty, which is saying something because it's already been pretty shitty as it is. Also, this trainer sprite looks like Jessie. I know it's, like, twin, like, long ponytail type things instead of Jessie's, like, one long swoosh of hair, but it just still looks similar. Anyway, God, where do I start? So basically, ever since the new management took over, and I guess just for the sake of anybody who's watching this who doesn't watch my normal stuff and doesn't know anything about what I do. It's just, I just work at a Pizza Hut. It's nothing glamorous or interesting, but there's stupid shit that happens all the time. And recently we went through some management changes which were really bad because we lost all the good people, basically. So the scheduling has just been all over the place, and we had 4 cooks, basically. I was one of them, and then there was like one who would usually kind of open in the mornings. There were actually 2 people who would do that, but one of them either got fired or quit recently. And then the other one, like, she's there, I think, maybe 5 days a week and opens, and I'm not even sure who they get for the other days, but whatever. Point is, like, the closing cooks, the ones who are there from the, like, busy dinner period until closing time, are me and this other guy named Darius, who I kind of like. Like, he is fairly, like, he keeps to himself most of the time, like I do, but, we at least, like, enjoy bitching about the stuff that goes on and can at least kind of, like, have that. Like, it's like, I recently, I felt like we were almost like veterans coming out of like a war zone, like with this shared experience, because it's been so shitty recently. So, I'm trying to think like where to even start with this in terms of like anything specific. It's just, the scheduling was really bad because last week, oh hey, here's a slowpoke. Fuck, this is gonna interrupt my story, isn't it? Yeah, it is. So I'll just make it quick. Point is, I was supposed to work on, like, I think I was supposed to come in on Wednesday, and then stay for the rest of the week after that, Thursday, Friday, etc. And so, like, I came in Wednesday only to find out that they had changed the schedule without telling me, and so she's like, oh, well, you actually don't work today, Darius is gonna be here, you can go back home. So I did. And, like, I was also told that he was supposed to, apparently, like, be off the next few days because he was taking vacation. And so then, like, it turned out that he didn't have the vacation and came in anyway for the next few days. And since he had already been working the past few, he was working 6 days in a row. And yesterday was Easter, and that I'll have to get into later. I'll talk about this during the gym, because yesterday was by far the worst. But anyway, here's Slowpoke, and we're going to talk about this one for a bit. Slowpoke is one of the Gen 1 Pokemon that I feel best encompasses the idea of just having fictional monsters that you can train that are fantastical and don't exist in real life, because a lot of Pokemon, and by a lot of I mean most, do have some kind of real-world basis, as I've talked about many times. Slowpoke kind of doesn't, but kind of does. It depends on how you want to look at it. I say that because nobody can really agree on what this thing is supposed to be. So before we go into its alleged origins, I'll talk about the Pokemon itself. It's a interesting type combination, Water Psychic. Looking at it, you might not necessarily guess either of those. It lives near the water, it can fish with its tail, that kind of stuff, so it has at least some association with water, even if it doesn't like live in it all the time. The psychic part is a bit weird because Slowpoke's main claim to fame is that it's extremely stupid, and so you wouldn't think that something like that would have any psychic abilities, but a way of looking at it could be that it basically has these latent abilities that cause it to be slow in other regards because most of its brain capacity is going towards that. Or even sort of like a Buddha type thing where it is just so deep into its meditation or Zen or whatever that it can't really afford to have any other mental capacity. I don't know, it's kind of weird. But it's kind of its own unique thing. I like it for what it is. And what it is just kind of a weird pink animal thing. So the things that I've seen this apparently be based on, according to some people, are a hippo, which I can kind of see. although a hippo doesn't have anything like the tail that Slowpoke does. A giant otter, which it kind of looks like in body shape, but not entirely. Giant salamander, which again I can see, but not entirely. And possibly even a couple other things that I'm forgetting, but those are the three that I see most often. And I basically think it's just kind of a combination of those things. They just kind of took the idea of a semi-aquatic animal and just kind of made something unique with it, and I'm fine with that. Also, it takes some inspiration from the sloth, obviously, because of how slow it is, but not really in design-wise at all. The Japanese name for this one is Yadon. The basis of that being Yado Kari, which means hermit crab, and just Don, which can mean dull, slow, stupid, etc. There's also Yado Nushi, which is parasitic host, which in this stage doesn't really mean anything, but that kind of comes into play with the evolution. Not going to be talking about those in this part because we'll save it for that, but there's a bit of interesting concept behind what Slowpoke might be based on once you start getting into Japanese mythology and yokai and things like that. Something called the Saze Oni, but again, that's more like Slowbro and not necessarily Slowpoke, so we'll save that for later. Okay, so I have no guilt talking over that battle, because in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, that's like an actual executive. I forget the guy's name. They like introduced 4 new characters, and they didn't really have that much of a purpose, honestly. I remember that I think his name was Petrel, the one who was just kind of the goofy one and was like good at imitating voices. And then there was like the one girl, but other than I don't remember the other 2 people at all. But yeah, here he's just a generic grunt. He has a coughing, and then you beat him, and he's like, "Yeah, Team Rocket disbanded, but now we're back, rawr," and then he's gone. So it's like whatever. The more interesting thing to come out of that was I learned Rock Throw. And also it is nighttime now. Alright, so gym is now open. Let me go ahead and heal. So where was I with the story? It's like, honestly, I don't even know if I can jump into how bad Sunday was without talking about the past few days, but I'll try my best. Usually the busy period is from like 5 to 8. That's when people are ordering dinner, so you get the most orders, and it's just kind of back-to-back. Like, you get way too much stuff to keep up with, and it is really hard. But, recently, it's been, like, later on for some reason. Like, the busy period starts later and ends later. And it would, like, for the last couple days, like, the Friday and Saturday, like, Darius would get there super early on and would have to work, like, almost 12 hours. Like, I think one day he actually did work 12 or 13 hours. So it's like he would leave at around 10 o'clock, and you'd think that that would be kind of the slow point, but it would, like, the orders would still be coming in, and I'd be so fucking backed up. I'd have, like, 10 to 15 orders on screen, and they just, every time I complete one, a new one comes in, and I just can't keep up with it. And so I was expecting Sunday to be complete shit, and I didn't want him to have to come in because it was going to be the 7th day in a row, but I wasn't sure if it was really avoidable. And it sounded like he was going to. So I'm expecting him to come in, and like I said, it was Easter Sunday, so like being a holiday, I'm already expecting it to be kind of more busy than usual. And we also didn't actually open until 3 o'clock, which I wasn't expecting at first. I thought that it was just going to be a normal, like, open at 9:30 or whatever. And so, you're always supposed to have people come in earlier in the day to, like, prepare, basically, some pizzas for the rest of the day. Like, you stretch out the dough, you put sauce and cheese on some of them, so you don't have to do them all, like, on the spot, just to kind of make stuff easier later. That did not happen, because our main manager, or not, I guess, like, I guess he's kind of like our second in command right now. Just kind of sucks ass and doesn't ever do anything that he's supposed to and loses focus easily. So, like, nobody came in. Like, when I came in at 3, everything was exactly as I had left it the previous night. And also, nobody told the, like, we have this call center that, like, if the phones get backed up and there's too many people calling in, the call center will get some of the calls that are coming into the store and they'll take the orders for us. Nobody told them, apparently, that we weren't opening until 3, so throughout the first, like, 5 hours of the normal shift, orders were coming in, and then people were calling back pissed off because they never got their deliveries and stuff. It was pretty good overall. But, so yeah, I get in there, and that's basically just how everything is, and I'm having to just rush and, like, throw together as much shit as I can quickly. Why did I go over here? And I mean, that was pretty much the day. Darius never showed up, which I don't blame the guy at all. Like, I wouldn't have freaking shown up either if it was me, but, yeah. It was surprisingly less busy than I thought it would be. On, Fridays and Saturdays, and, yeah, Friday and Saturday we usually get up to like 330, 350 orders in a day. Sunday is usually about 300 or close to it. This Sunday was only like 170, I think, which thank God, because we didn't freaking have anything. I got some help, not much. The manager that I hate at least did make some stuffed crust, like, while there was other stuff going on, so I didn't have to make those from scratch, which I was incredibly thankful for, because stuffed crust takes freaking forever to make. But other than that, I mean, I was the only cook, and it was just basically, as soon as an order was finished, another would come in. I never had time to stop and do anything else, so, like I said, overall, fun day. I don't know, it's like, I could go on more about some of the details of it, but I don't really need to. It's just, whatever. It's Pizza Hut drama, nobody really cares, but it's like, that, oh yeah, part of the reason I brought all this up is because, like, I'm recording this on a Monday, so yesterday was the awful, like, Easter Sunday. I apparently have today and the next 2 days off, allegedly. That's how it was last week, too. And I kind of feel like it's not going to stay this way, but I don't know when I'm going to, like, have to work, and I probably won't know until, like, the time that they need me. It's like, let's look at the schedule, who's supposed to work today? Oh, we don't have anybody scheduled today. Shit, let's call somebody. Like, they won't know beforehand because they're dumbasses, so they'll be like, hey, can you come in, like, now? And I'm just kind of expecting that to happen at any point, and I'm, like, afraid to even try and record and stuff. But what can you do? So, actually talking about the game for a moment here, I will point out that I'm at least managing to kill some stuff with Rock Throw, which is surprising. It doesn't have very good accuracy, as I'm noticing, but it's at least getting stab and is super effective against stuff, so, like, look, I almost beat a Beedrill in one shot. That's... What is this awful fucking accuracy that I've been having lately? Good God. Yeah, I don't think it's much of an accomplishment to beat a Beedrill, but, it's something at least. Okay, so that's everybody in the gym except for the leader, so let's go back and heal one more time, I guess. And, Bugsy himself is not exactly threatening, which is a little bit of a shame, because gym leaders are supposed to be kind of the bosses, and a few segments ago, or possibly just in the last, I think it was just in the last video, I was saying, like, Gen 2 isn't perfect, it has the issue with the level curve, but I never really finished that thought, and I was starting to say that, it also just kind of pushes the new Pokemon into the background and you don't see them very often. And this gym is a good example of that because, like, we had the twins use Lediba, and I think there was a Spinarak, I don't even remember. Like, there were a couple new things in here, but, like, there are new Gen 2 bug types that are at least mediocre. And then there's, like, Heracross and Scizor, which are really good. Now, a Scizor at this early in the game would probably be a bit much, but I could see an underleveled Heracross, or at least, like, a Ledian, or Pineco, or, like, fucking anything that isn't a Metapod. Like, I don't know, it's... Every gym leader, I feel, should have basically had a different team. Like, I'm trying to think if there's any single gym leader in this game that has a team that I'm okay with. Maybe Claire. Like, Falconer should have had a Hoot Hoot, maybe a Natu. Like, something other than a Pidgey. Bugsy here should have evolved, if not both, at least one of the Metapod and the Kakuna. Like, these are just free experience. They can't hurt you. Like, if you evolve I forgot to turn animations on, whatever, I don't even care. Like, if you evolve a Caterpie or a Weedle, they'll at least have their base form attacks. I'm pretty sure Bugsies just have Harden, which is just, what the hell. Now, Scyther here can be a threat if you let it be, but it's 4 times weak to Rock, and I resist its attacks a lot, so the fact that I'm using Onix here is kind of making easy work of it. Like, if you go into this with a bad team, then the Scyther can be a problem, but it still probably won't be. And so, yeah, we're just kind of spamming Rock Throw and getting through this fight. So how would I have changed this one? Keeping the Scyther, I guess, is fine. I would say Spinarak and Ledian. Maybe Ariados and Ledian. I mean, that, for second gym, that might be a bit much. But I feel like they should be using Johto Pokemon. There's no reason for this. It's just kind of dumb. So anyway, this is going to be the Fury Cutter TM, which the Scyther was using. Not that you really got to see it, because I forgot to turn animations back on, and it didn't do anything against me because of type advantage. But it's a move that exists. It's not horrible. Like, if stuff learns it naturally in later generations, I'll usually keep it on the moveset, at least for a little while. I don't know if I really want to use the TM on anybody, though. And so here's a point where I've been preparing for quite a while and I've just not said anything about it, and people have probably kind of noticed what I've been doing, but I've done my best to kind of make it not obvious. So, let me look at my team real quick here. I usually like to keep my team members at about the same level, and I've been kind of breaking that rule a bit here. Now, I'm not going to be able to do all 3 at once, unfortunately, but I've got Enchilada, very close to hitting level 14, and Basil, very close to hitting level 16, and that was on purpose, because those are their evolution levels. I was going to try to get all 3 of them at once, but unfortunately Totodile evolves at 18, and unless I was going to do a lot more grinding, or like use this instead of David against stuff, it wasn't really gonna happen. So we're not gonna get a triple evolution, but we're at least gonna get a double. And the battle that this is gonna happen in is gonna be coming up in a second here, so let me actually get the team in a proper order so I can do this. If you are not prepared for this, this battle can very easily kind of wreck your face, because it kind of comes out of nowhere, and he's actually kind of hard for this point in the game. It's surprising. So, he only has 3 Pokemon, but first one's a Ghastly, and if you have not been training your team well or like getting a wide variety of Pokemon, this can pose a problem because you obviously can't hit it with normal moves, and like for instance, if you've been only raising Chikorita or something, you're kind of hosed because, I mean, you can, if you've only been raising Chikorita, you probably have a level advantage over this to a point where it wouldn't really matter, but it resists grass is what I'm trying to say, and it has Hypnosis, which thankfully missed. Lick can paralyze, okay. I'm actually kind of glad that paralyzed me, because that at least means I can't fall asleep now. I don't remember if this thing has Curse. If it does, that can also do a lot of damage too, but whatever, it's dead now. If you have a Totodile, it's pretty easy to take down because it has the weakness to Dark, and Bite is a Dark move, so you can do that. So I would switch to Basil to get the experience here, but it's a Zubat. It kind of resists grass a lot, so let's not do that. Yeah, his first 2 Pokemon are always the same no matter what starter you have, and if you went with grass, then you're going to have a bad time in this fight because he has 2 different Pokemon that resist grass because they're both poison, and this one's also part flying. How much damage is this Zubat going to be doing to me? Because I feel like I'm taking more damage than I really need to be here. Yeah, that's, let's actually just go ahead and switch out to, David here and finish it with a Rock Slide. I was going to say Rock Slide. I would like to have Rock Slide. I don't think I can learn Rock Slide. That's unfortunate. Now, Rock Slide is a TM in Gen 1. I don't know if it is in Gen 2. I'll actually have to look that up, because if I would benefit from actually trading it backwards to yellow, using the TM and trading it forwards, I might actually do that. But if it can learn Rock Slide anyway, then whatever. And, I didn't actually remember what starter my rival had here, because I couldn't remember which was the 3rd that I picked, and yeah, whatever. So I was expecting Croconaw, but that didn't happen, so we're just gonna bait and switch here, because obviously that's not gonna work out. I could do a semi-mirror match, but let's just... Let's take a hit, and then, use a potion here. Now, the sad thing is, if I, had actually gone up, like, 1 more level with Pillory, I might have been able to get the triple evolution out of this fight. But I didn't want to do any, like, off-screen grinding of the starters, and I didn't want to, like... The thing with this is, like, I've done the triple evolution thing in other games. Like, even in my playthrough of Moon, I got all 3 of my starters to evolve off of the battle with, I think, Cena on the 2nd island. It's just kind of... If you can make it happen, it's... Like, it doesn't do anything for you. It's just kind of a nice little touch you can do. I don't know. So it requires usually a fair bit of planning. And especially in Gen 2, when everything evolves at a different level for some freaking weird reason, it can be a little bit annoying to make work out. Also, this Quilava is kind of causing a few problems here. Do I have anything to heal Burn? I actually did have a full heal, or it was like the equivalent. It was like a heal powder or something. But I sold that, so even with the type advantage, I'm kind of having a problem here. Now watch as this thing burns me too. I don't know. So with the experience being split 3 ways here, hopefully I'll at least get the double evolution. Not sure how much Basil needed to hit 16. I don't think it was very much, it was like 30. Can we please finish this thing off? Alright. There we go. And so, here we have a couple of these. I don't think they're going to learn any moves after evolving. There's kind of a trend with third stage starters to sometimes learn a new move when they hit that level, but I don't even think that started happening until like Gen 3. But nope, we've got a Bayleaf and a Quilava now. Here's Baklava just being his usual edgelord self. Alright, and that is basically going to be the video. So here's the thing, as soon as I go into the woods, there's 3 new Pokemon I can catch, and I would like to do the bios when I catch them and not, like, at an arbitrary later date. So I'm going to hold off on those, and because of that, I don't want to go into the woods at all. I don't really have anything else better to do. So we're just going to kind of end this with my thoughts on the 2 new evolutions, and we will be heading into Ilex Forest next time. Quilava is the first of the middle form starters that I'm going to be talking about here, which is fitting because it's the first one in terms of like level required to reach it, tied with Monferno from Gen 4. Most middle form starters require getting up to level 16. This one is 14 for whatever reason. They kind of changed it up a little bit in Gen 2. And there's really not much to say about Quilava itself. It's a trend that is shared with a lot of middle form Pokemon, which is mainly what I'm going to be talking about here, probably. In terms of what Quilava is, it's based off of just some sort of mustelid. It's a weasel or ferret, or just stoat is the one that I'm seeing, as apparently it's the closest to. I didn't really know what a stoat was for a long time. It's basically just a weasel with a short tail, which Quilava doesn't have a tail at all, so fair enough. But they're all just kind of the same general type of animal, just sort of a long... I think I said this about Sentret, just kind of a generic long mammal. And it's definitely a bit more generic than Cyndaquil, which had a few interesting possible, like, origins behind it. This one's just, it's a weasel, whatever. And it's got fire on it because it's a fire type, and that's really all it needs to have. Again, with the name, a lot of these have been really simple lately. It's just Quill, again, which Cyndaquil also had, and then Lava. And the Japanese name is not much more original. It's Magu Marashi, Magu just coming from magma, and then you have Yama Arashi, meaning porcupine, which was also used for Cyndaquil's name, which was Hino Arashi. So, yeah, that's about it for this one. I mean, that's the thing with a lot of starter middle forms. You've got a few here and there that are kind of standouts, but not very often. The starters are usually designed to have a very marketable first stage that's on a lot of merchandise and promoted in the anime because they're kind of the cute ones. They're sort of the face of the generation in a lot of ways. And then you have the final stage, which are supposed to be the tough, cool ones that you want to have on your team, and there'll be a character in the show that gets one later on, and maybe Ash will get one, and it'll be like this big thing you want to aim for eventually. And in Gen 1, they were like the mascots on the versions. But the middle forms are just kind of the forgotten ones. They're the awkward teenage years, and Quilava definitely represents that. It's Not as cute as Cyndaquil, but it's not as cool as Typhlosion. It just kind of exists. You'll get one pretty early on in the game, and usually try to evolve it as soon as possible. And in most generations, I'd say you would have it evolved by about the halfway point of the game, but this is Gen 2, so it'll be like at the end. And yeah, it's like once you're past that stage, you'll not really look back and care a whole lot. And this doesn't only apply to starters. This is the case with a lot of things with a 3-stage evolution, with the middle one just kind of being the forgotten one of the group. There's obviously exceptions, most notably things like Pikachu, but with that one, it was originally the first stage and then a baby was added later, so I don't know if that really counts. But we'll get to those later. A lot of those are probably going to be super short reviews, and this one was only as long as it was because I was talking about how there was nothing to talk about, so I'll shut up. And so immediately after saying I have nothing to talk about with a middle form, let's talk about Bayleaf. It's definitely more interesting than Quilava because it is a more appropriate middle stage, I feel. Like, they both kind of bridge the gap between the first stage and the final stage as they're supposed to, but Bayleaf has a little bit more of an identity to it, and I could see this being the final form of a Pokemon that wasn't a starter, potentially. It kind of has sort of a decent finality to its design in some ways. But yeah, I mean, it serves its purpose. You get it early on, you use it for a while, and then you evolve it. Chikorita's coloration was always a little bit up in the air. It kind of switches between being green and yellow depending on the era that the artwork is in, but Bayleaf has always been sort of a, like, bright, just dandelion yellow in some, like, I don't know if dandelion yellow is the best way to put it, but it's just kind of a bright yellow. And Meganium is decidedly green, so Bayleaf sometimes kind of stands out as being like the one that's a different color for some reason. And there's also a weird bit of progression here where Chikorita has the leaf on its head, and then Bayleaf has the same leaf, but now there's like a big bite out of it. And then for the final stage, it's just gone entirely. So, I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense, but I don't know. I think they just added the little bite taken out of it just to make it a little bit more visually interesting. And, yeah, as far as this one goes, the name, again, is just kind of straightforward. There's an actual plant called the Bayleaf. It's spelled the same way as the Pokemon, but not as stupidly. It's not really based off of a Bayleaf in any way, because the Pokedex continuously refers to this thing as having, like, spicy leaves that, like, get you excited and want to fight and stuff, and actual bay leaves are bitter and don't have any such property at all. The leaves coming out of its neck could be the bay laurel, but those just look like generic leaves to me, so I don't think they're really specifically based off of that. They could be based on the name, but I mean, it's not a guarantee. And the Japanese name is also just Bayleaf, so we don't have any insight to the design from that one. And other than the plant aspect, it's basically just a sauropod. There are a few different types of dinosaurs that look like this, the most classic one being the Brontosaurus or Apatosaurus. There was a period of time where, like, the Apatosaurus was discovered, then they discovered the Brontosaurus, then they realized that they were the same dinosaur, and so they determined that Brontosaurus was not a correct term to use, and they, like, got rid of that one. But then apparently they found that it was a different dinosaur after all, and so now the Brontosaurus is a thing again. It's kind of confusing. This one's just kind of one of those. There's other ones similar to that, like the Diplodocus, but that one's a bit longer. This one's probably just a Brontosaurus, whatever. It's Bayleaf, it does its job, and then you evolve it, and then you move on with your life.